LoadRunner 12.0. This webinar is brought to you by HP Software. My name is Megan Shelton, and I will be hosting and moderating today's webinar. I currently lead Vivid's Performance Engineering SIG and the Ohio chapter. I have over 10 years of performance engineering experience, and my team currently works on LMPC 11.52, and we're planning our upgrade to 12. I've been using LoadRunner since version 4.51 and Performance Center since it was called Test Center. Our presenters today are Mukalika is a Senior Product Manager for Performance Center, a core part of the HP Software Performance Validation space, addressing the enterprise performance testing COE market. She is responsible for driving future strategy, roadmap, optimal solution usage, and best practices, and serves as a primary liaison for customers and the worldwide field community. She has 14 years experience in IT consulting, software development, and architecture definition and SaaS. Shane is a Senior Product Manager for the de facto standard in application performance testing, HP LoadRunner. Shane's background begins in technical support, which led to quality assurance and implementing a COE around functional automation and performance testing. He has studied ITIL version 3 and TOGAF, as well as programming in various languages, and has managed small and medium-sized teams and held responsibility over critical IT systems. Colin is an NFT team leader for BSkyB's platform performance engineering team. Colin manages the performance testing team responsible for BSkyB customer management application. He is responsible for the HP Performance Tool Suite and has been working as a performance engineer since 1999, working with LoadRunner since version 6 in 2000, and with Performance Center for the last 7 years. He brings in-depth knowledge to this area. Some quick housekeeping. Today's live session is intended for all Vivid members. The recording will be posted in the webinar section on the Vivid website, visible to all members. Additionally, today's slide deck and webinar recording will be made available to you. We will send you the link via email once they are posted to the Vivid website. If you have questions as we go along, please type and send them in using the question pane in the webinar control panel. If we get more questions than we have time to answer, look for a follow-up communication with the answers to those we did not get a chance to answer. Here is a picture of the GoToWebinar control panel that usually appears in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. To submit a question, make sure the questions pane is expanded and type your question and click on Send. So let's get started. I will pass it over to Shane.
Thanks, Megan. Hi, everyone. My name is Shane Evans. I'm the product manager for HP LoadRunner, as mentioned, and it's my pleasure today to bring to you what's new and what's included in LoadRunner version 12 and Performance Center version 12. Mukalika and I are going to go through some of the key areas, but this is not a complete list. So I will suggest for everyone on the call to go in and download at the end of the call LoadRunner 12, and we'll provide links to where you can get that. So our goal for this release is to deliver you the capabilities for yourself to, in turn, deliver high-quality, high-performing applications with unprecedented velocity and uncompromising quality. We have 5 key areas which we're focusing on, which I'll talk about in a minute. But there's a lot of features here that are really intended to make you more efficient in how you test and deliver your applications, more efficient in driving out performance bottlenecks so that you can deliver more value to your business, and so that you can avoid costly performance issues going into production. First, let's start with some market trends and how did we get here. So we know that the world is changing. It's a constant in IT. The only thing that is constant is change. But we're really seeing a shift from systems of record to systems of engagement. And this is changing the demands on our applications. How do we get applications to market faster? How do we engage with our customers in a more meaningful way? And the first experience any customer has with an application is how well it performs. Let's say you're on a mobile device and you download an app from one of the app stores. The first thing you're going to experience from that application is how well it performs. It could have the most amazing features, life-changing capabilities, but if it doesn't respond quickly enough, chances are you'll get bored and you'll move on to either a competitor app or something else. And this is a reality today that's forcing customers, forcing service providers to consider that customers are no longer sticky to their applications any longer. It's true now that if an application doesn't meet a customer's needs, that they'll simply move on. And this is changing the way that we are forced to deliver applications. So there's more focus on mobility and taking apps to market faster. We expect releases on a monthly basis, on a bi-weekly basis, rather than on a quarterly or yearly basis. So it's changing the way that we're delivering the application itself. How do we test it? As well as where do these applications reside? It's becoming more and more difficult to stand up data centers and dedicated infrastructure, so there's more of a shift towards virtualization. And these are some of the key themes that are changing the way that we look at testing. It's pushing the drive for agile and how do we insert new functionality into our applications more quickly to react to changing customer needs. But let's look at the underlying kind of technologies for a moment. So if you consider any sort of application built on mobile today, there's a number of layers beneath that, and these are based on trends from the past years, market disruptions themselves. But each of these hasn't slowed down. They consistently change and grow and accelerate our change into the applications that we deliver. So when we talk about mobile, we're building on top of an ever-shifting landscape of technologies. So it becomes increasingly difficult to keep up. In any application, and this is a very simplified view, we'll be dealing with multiple components, carriers, services, and service providers that aren't always in our control. So we need to take a strategy on how we isolate and identify issues in our applications during testing in those areas that we do control, and still taking into consideration those external factors that are going to play into performance, for example. If you're looking at mobile applications, the mobile carriers and networks have an enormous impact on application performance to the end user. As much as 70% of the response times to the end user are made up in that network. Latency, carrier, packet loss, jitter, that sort of thing. But it's not enough that we just simulate that for the purpose of those end users, but for the entire application infrastructure. In an example like this, where our mobile users are sharing infrastructure with our traditional web and fat client applications, for example, on internal systems, the impact of poor performing customers on mobile carriers actually has an impact to the rest of our users' experience as well. Likewise, third-party services such as external vendors. I often use the example of credit bureau systems. There's a lot of financial customers have to deal with this, where your application reaches out to an external credit bureau or decisioning system. If that application doesn't belong to you, then chances are you can't run a performance test against it in the first place. But the impact of how that service performs plays a critical role in the overall performance of our application. So it's critical that we include or virtualize those third-party services so that we can test for both the positive scenarios where that third party is meeting their SLAs, but also the negative scenarios when they're not, and understand the impact to our end users and the performance of our applications. So before we jump into the meat of the presentation, I wanted to ask a couple of quick questions, and I believe somebody is going to jump in and kind of pose those questions to you, and you'll see some interaction on your screen there.
So the first question is, what performance testing solution are you currently using? Please select one, HP LoadRunner, HP Performance Center, or a non-HP product.
And the votes are coming in. We'll just give it about 10 to 15 more seconds, Megan. Okay, I'm going to close the poll and show the results.
Okay, it looks like the majority, or the biggest majority, is HP Performance Center, followed by LoadRunner, and then a non-HP product. The next poll question is, what version of HP LoadRunner or HP Performance Center are you currently using? Please select one, 12.0, 11.5, 11, or older than 11. We'll give everyone a minute to answer.
And the votes are coming in, and it's looking interesting here. I give it a couple more seconds. There's a few more coming in. Okay, here's the results.
Wow, and the majority of you are using 11.5, followed by 11, and there's a handful on 12, and a handful on something older than 11. The third question, are you currently using cloud to execute your performance testing? We'll again give everyone a minute to answer.
Okay, great. They're coming in, and this looks like a landslide. This is exciting. Okay, a couple more seconds. They're still coming in. Okay, I'm going to share the results.
Okay, and the results are in. Looks like the majority of you are not yet using cloud to execute your performance testing. And I believe we have one final poll question. Are you currently testing performance of mobile applications? Please select one. Again, this is the last question. We'll give everyone a minute to respond, and we'll show you the results.
Okay, the votes are steadily coming in here. We'll give it about 10 more seconds. Okay, I'm going to close this poll and share these results with the audience.
And the results are about 65 not currently testing performance of mobile applications, and around 35% are. I'm going to hand it back over to Shane to continue.
Thank you, everyone. This helps us kind of understand where everyone is with their testing and where to focus more in this presentation, so thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, we have 5 key areas that we're focusing on in this release, and those are cloud, mobile, continuous testing, our user experience, and our pricing simplification, or the flexible delivery of the products. So I'll just jump right in and get into cloud testing. But first, I wanted to set the stage and just to recap kind of how everything fits together. For those of you who are maybe on older versions or maybe haven't seen what's new, it's since 11.5.2, the more recent release before version 12 was released. This will be just a very, very quick recap. So for those of you using LoadRunner today, or Performance Center, I should say, we have the virtual user generator, which is used to author scripts and record our application that we're going to be testing. This is completely rewritten in version 11.5 on a new open source, Sharp developed platform. We then create our test scenarios in the LoadRunner controller, where we design our user ramp up, or how long do we run the test for, and what do we do with our results. And those are staged and executed on our load generators, which is number 3. And these are headless servers that can run anywhere in the application infrastructure. It can be next to the application under test with network virtualization, or it can be located in remote areas throughout your network or out in the cloud, which is the area we'll focus on here. We then measure the impact by collecting monitoring data from the application using the native monitors in LoadRunner or Performance Center, or more preferably through SiteScope, which is included with the purchase of LoadRunner and Performance Center as well. And then we analyze our test results using the analysis tool. And this is where we can build our reports and our report templates so that we can easily distribute the results of our tests to the various stakeholders. In version 11.5, we introduced the HP Live Network, 11.5.2, and the HP Live Network is a way of connecting our users to one another. It's accessible via the web or through the virtual user generator, and this is where users and customers, partners can share content with one another, which will improve and help you solve problems in testing your applications. And Performance Center, which sits on top of all this, provides the kind of management center of excellence layer that allows us to centralize assets, deliver trend reports, and understand the life cycle of performance testing from testing to production and back, as well as collaborate on a global scale. So let's look at cloud testing. What does this mean? If we take our applications that are internet-facing or out in the cloud, testing these applications can be time-consuming and very difficult. It can be very expensive to dedicate machines out on the open internet for executing these tests, and very cumbersome to work with networking teams and info security teams to make sure that the communications is secure, that the machines themselves are secure. I've worked with a number of customers who've gone through this, and having gone through it myself, I can tell you that it's no easy task to set up this type of test. And to do so on a regular basis can be even more cumbersome. It's not something that gets easier over time. So what we've done in version 12 is provide you with the ability to scale up into the cloud and use Amazon or in the future other cloud service providers to scale up or scale out your performance testing using public cloud infrastructure. And again, this is primarily designed for customers who are testing applications that are internet-facing. So this might not be all of your testing. In fact, I'm guessing many of you who have internet-facing applications would first test those applications internally in a lab environment in a more isolated way before moving to kind of a staging or pre-production environment out in the cloud or internet-facing. This capability is available in both LoadRunner and Performance Center. It allows you to very quickly scale up the infrastructure needed, the load generators using public cloud in a secure manner, and it will cost literally a fraction, just a few dollars per test to execute per load generator versus the thousands of dollars that it would take to either dedicate machines physically or virtually that are exposed to the internet. This allows for instant geographical distribution for any of the data centers that are supported by the given cloud service provider. And it allows you to share your cloud environments between tests. So if you have a need to test multiple applications, you can either choose to retain those load generators that have been provisioned in the cloud, or you can tear them down at the end of each test for additional cost savings. From the Performance Center perspective, which I'll show you in a moment, or Mukalika, I think we'll talk more about, this allows you to manage your cloud services and provisioning the entire organization. So you have multiple cloud service accounts, and you can share those with the different projects in Performance Center. So when you provision load generators, you can manage the costs associated with those and track those back to the individual projects. This will significantly reduce the amount of time spent in both managing the infrastructure, but also in working with the internal projects and understanding their costs. Also from Performance Center's perspective, we're providing the ability to create or provision load generators either centrally for the entire organization or from within the MyPC user interface. When you're actually going to run the test, you can provision your load generators there. So it's really flexible in terms of how your users leverage this capability. You can either provide it for them on behalf of your users from an administrative perspective, or put that in the hands of the users. And if they have their own service accounts that are assigned to their projects, then that's something that they can manage. Mukalika, did you want to take a moment and just talk about the flow?
Sure. Thanks, Shane. So before I go through the flow, I wanted to just reiterate what Shane said, but we'll do it quickly for the sake of the time. First thing is, if you're looking to a hybrid solution that you have LoadRunner and Performance Center on-premise within your network, you run, say, 5,000 virtual user tests every week, every day, and then during seasonal changes like, say, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Super Bowl, you want to scale up to 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 virtual users. But you don't want to you don't want to go to another solution. You want to scale out from your existing LoadRunner and Performance Center. This is the solution. You can have a hybrid solution, that is, you run most of your performance tests with your existing load generators, which are on your physical or virtual machines within your data center, and then during large peak load testing, you scale out into the cloud. Or if you're looking for a fully cloud solution, then we have Performance Center on HP Software as a Service, which is hosted by HP. It's all cloud. There, even the controller and the whole Performance Center is in the cloud, along with the load generator scaling out to Amazon. So you have both the options, hybrid or fully cloud. And as Shane said, this cloud testing, which was introduced in version 12, is available both in LoadRunner and in Performance Center. It works very similarly. The only difference is LoadRunner being more project-focused product versus Performance Center being more a COE, multiple projects-focused product. So we have more management of cloud account features in Performance Center and reporting versus in LoadRunner. Otherwise, they both work very similarly. And with version 12, we have 50 free virtual user community edition, which Shane will talk in more detail later. So as soon as we go through this whole presentation, feel free to download and try out these features. So how does cloud testing work? So first step is, in version 12, we have enable cloud testing using Amazon EC2, Amazon's public cloud, but in the further releases, we'll be adding more and more clouds. In this next release, we'll add HP cloud, and then further down, more public cloud, and then followed up by private cloud. So first you need is a cloud provider account. In this case, Amazon EC2 account. It takes 5 to 10 minutes to go to Amazon EC2 website and set up an account. And then you add your account within your HP LoadRunner or Performance Center. Again, we don't want to manage your account. It's your LoadRunner Performance Center instance. All you do is you create your Amazon account and add it within LoadRunner and Performance Center. Shing, can you go to the next slide? Once you add your cloud account, so in Performance Center, you can add the same account across multiple projects, assign it to multiple projects, or you can add one account per project, or you can add multiple accounts per project. In LoadRunner, it is much more simple. You add one or more account and you go ahead and use it. Once you add the account, what the product does is it goes to Amazon EC2 and it pulls all the HP public images which we have published. So HP will publish load generator public machine images on Amazon. With every release, whenever we patch load generators, we will update the public images on Amazon. So as soon as you enter your cloud account, the product goes, checks on Amazon EC2 and pulls the load generator public images. And then you automatically provision machines on Amazon using those public images. So HP is actually going to publish images across the world on every Amazon region. So suppose there's an Amazon region, US East, US West, EMEA, Ireland, Asia Pacific. HP will publish images, and HP will publish images in multiple sizes, say medium size Amazon image versus large size Amazon image. And when you enter your account, you'll see all those images within the product, and then you will say, okay, provision 20 machines on, say, US East of this image type with, say, memory strong, CPU strong, da-da-da-da-da. And then you can say, okay, provision 20 more from another region. And you add all of this and click on provision. As soon as you click on provision, the provisioning will start. And it takes, we have checked, it takes maximum 5 to 10 minutes to provision 100 machines across the world. In LoadRunner, the UI will be much more simple. In Performance Center, because it's more like multiple project-based product, you will see a provisioning report which will show you the status, how the provisioning is going. If you click on it, you will see the logs also, so that you can see, okay, every machine, what is the status, where is it, how long will it take, and typically it takes 10 minutes to provision as much as 100 to 100 machines, because they all happen in parallel. Once the provisioning ends, the load generators will show up in LoadRunner as well as Performance Center, just the way any other load generators show up. There will be no difference between your existing data center load generator versus cloud load generators. And you can actually run performance tests with a hybrid of load generators. You can use, say, 10 of your machines and 30 from the cloud. And you can provision once, run multiple tests, or you can provision once and run a test and again then deprovision. So it's totally up to you how you want to do it. Next is, once you run all your tests, you want to see your cloud usage. In LoadRunner, it's much more simple, but in Performance Center, because you'll be sharing an account across multiple projects, we have reports which will show you, okay, which project is using how much. We have a concept of credit. We are not managing your cloud account balance because it's your own Amazon account. So we have a concept of credit, which is more like a logical balance, which you can assign to every project, saying that, okay, say .com project, you get 1,000 credits versus internal app project, you get 200 credits. And every time a machine is provisioned, it will use up the credit. So logically, you can control the usage of cloud by every project. And then the usage reports will show you which project is using how much, which project provisioned but did not use the machines, what were the operational issues, so multiple reports to show you the whole usage. Again, before I end it, this is a new feature. We want you to try it out. And it is a hybrid feature. You can mix and match your load generators. The biggest advantage, as Shane mentioned, is we redid the whole communication. So most of you will not have to make any network changes. All the traffic is outbound using regular standard ports, say ports 80 or 443 over SSL. If you have really strict security policies and even your outbound traffic is blocked, then you will have to make network changes the first time, only one time. But after that, provisioning should be all over regular HTTP ports. And even we support proxy configuration. So with that, I will hand it over back to Shane to talk about our next feature, which is mobile testing.
Thanks, Monica. And I'd like to add one more bit there, that the communication between your on-premise infrastructure and your load generators in the cloud is completely secured using public-private key pair encryption. So unlike setting up these load generators in past releases where you would have to spend a lot of time hardening the machines and really tightening the communication so that it's secure, this is built from the ground up to be secure. And I know that's a hot topic these days with the Heartbleed vulnerability. Okay, so moving on very quickly to mobile performance testing. Another key area that we wanted to focus on here, although many of these features were introduced in past releases, is our enhanced mobile testing experience. So as many of you may have heard, HP has recently acquired the Shunra technology for mobile testing or for network virtualization as a whole, but specifically mobile testing is where it becomes increasingly relevant today. So the areas that we're focusing on here are the ability to test mobile applications the way that you need, and us as HP providing the tools, we can't assume that your applications are delivered in-house or if they're available from a third party, whether you're using physical devices or device emulators, or if you're testing native or mobile web applications. So we want to give you the most flexibility in terms of how you performance test these mobile applications. We're also tightly integrated with the network virtualization piece, which I'll talk about in just a moment. So from a mobile testing perspective, we really deal with three key areas. One, which we've been testing for many years and most of you are quite familiar with, and that's testing and monitoring our backend of the application. And the backend in this case might include everything from the application servers, web servers, through to database, MQ, and other frameworks in the backend, mainframes, etc. Next is the network itself. What is the impact of the network on our mobile application performance? And then lastly, we would consider the front end. What types of devices, what carriers, what operating systems are being used, and how can we optimize the application itself on the front end in order to facilitate the best possible performance of the application. So we're providing in LoadRunner and Performance Center the tools to work across all three of these areas and identify performance bottlenecks very early in the application lifecycle rather than waiting to get to production before our users report poor performance and likewise give lower than perfect ratings in app stores, which can have a huge impact on us. We want to test both positive and negative scenarios, both in the network and the services that are provided on the back end. And we provide, again, multiple avenues for testing these applications. So just to address those different options, in version 11, patch 3, we actually introduced two new protocols, the Mobile Applications Protocol, which is suitable for testing both native and hybrid applications and can be recorded in multiple ways, which I'll talk about more in a moment. We introduced the Mobile True Client Protocol, which provides a means of simulating the end user experience for mobile web applications, so your m.hp.com, for example, and is ideal for testing early in the application lifecycle and getting very quick feedback to the developers. And then we introduced in version 11.5.2 additional methods for capturing traffic for the mobile applications protocol, and one of those was the on-device application that's available for Android. Another that I think is probably becoming the most popular and easiest to use, which is the proxy recording method, is suitable for capturing mobile application traffic on any type of device, operating system combination, and is, again, suitable for native or hybrid applications. And in version 12, we introduced the SAP Mobile Platform protocol as well. This is within the SAP bundle from a licensing perspective, and it was co-developed with the SAP team. So this is actually captured from the server side and is configured from within the SAP platform, also known as the Sybase Unwired platform. As I mentioned earlier, we provide full integration with both service and network virtualization. In 11.5.2, we introduced additional capabilities around the genre network virtualization, which has now been acquired by HP. And this allows you to configure and monitor your network virtualization settings from within LoadRunner Performance Center in a very tightly integrated way. So for each of the groups, for example, that we add to a particular test, each of those groups can have their own network configuration that you can define within LoadRunner Performance Center, or you can reach out to what's called the global library to pull down network settings that we provide, tens of thousands of different network configurations and impairments from around the world in case that you're testing applications that are maybe public-facing. We also provide capabilities around capturing the network conditions from your mobile applications themselves. So if you have users on Android or iOS, you can download the Network Catcher Express application for free on those platforms and capture the traffic directly from your users so that you can understand their network conditions and insert those into your testing very early on. The same applies for service virtualization, which is shown at the top. This allows us through HP Service Virtualization to virtualize those external and third-party services that I mentioned, the credit bureau or maybe the back-end mainframe applications or MQ systems that are not available for testing. And you can virtualize and control those services during your test. So that kind of summarizes our mobile testing capabilities. Look forward to introducing additional features and products around network virtualization, additional integrations and capabilities in the very near future, but for the sake of time, we'll kind of keep it to that, and I look forward to any questions you might have in the comments. Moving on to continuous testing, another key area for this release is that we wanted to enable testing to happen earlier in the life cycle. We want to provide the means of testing within agile projects, which is a real big challenge for performance engineering these days, because a lot of the practices around agile aren't or don't consider performance testing a requirement, and it's often left to later activities in different teams. So it's not part of the core kind of agile practices, and therefore it kind of gets pushed off to later sprints or a group outside of the core agile development team. So what we really wanted to do here was provide capabilities that allow you as testers to work closely with your developers so that you can insert performance testing throughout the life cycle and get feedback to the development teams earlier so that they're able to improve performance within the sprint rather than waiting for later activities, later releases. So 3 keys to better performance in terms of agile testing. One, we need to test as early as possible. We need to test often, which means we need to automate the process. And we need to monitor and leverage the data that we capture throughout testing and onto our production environment so that we can get, again, early feedback from the production users and bring that back into our testing so that we can improve the testing itself. So how do we do that? The first step is we've introduced add-ins for Visual Studio and Eclipse, which allow developers to perform single-user performance testing from a unit test perspective very early in development. We assume that developers are already doing unit testing of some kind. A recent survey from Forrester showed, I think it was 68% of developers in mobile testing are actually performing unit tests as well, which is a high number, but it's not perfect. We'd like to see that at 100%, but for those developers who are doing unit testing, they can now leverage the LoadRunner tools and APIs so that they can insert performance testing into those unit tests very early on. They can then build performance tests from within the developer environment and then hand those over to our performance test engineers for greater scalability and testing. The next step is that we can leverage these assets, the Selenium, JUnit, or NUnit unit tests from developers, which include the LoadRunner APIs for things like timing and data points to understand what is actually being done in those unit tests. And we can leverage those as part of a LoadRunner scenario. These are not yet recognized as test types in Performance Center, but if this is something that you're looking to achieve, let us know, and we'd be happy to help you understand how it can be done in your Performance Center environment. The last step is that we want to be able to test frequently, meaning every single time a build is checked into the environment, we want to be able to run a performance test against it without having to coordinate with the developers and understand what was tested or what was implemented in each release. At the very minimum, we want to be able to insert a baseline test at the end of every build cycle. So using Jenkins in LoadRunner and now in Performance Center in version 12, we can do that. We can execute our baseline test at the end of every build and then immediately get feedback on whether or not the test passed or failed based on the SLAs that are defined in the test. So those SLAs might be transaction response time based, or they might be based on hits per second and throughput, but it gives us that very, very quick feedback so that we don't need to open up the results unless the test shows a failure. And the Jenkins plugin, which is open source and available on the Jenkins site, also supports functional testing, ALM, LoadRunner, and Performance Center. In Performance Center, we also provide REST APIs to support continuous delivery for non-Jenkins platforms. So if you have an in-house kind of framework developed for your continuous delivery, you can just simply leverage the Performance Center APIs to call and create tests dynamically through that. Okay, so I'm actually going to skip through this very quickly, looking at the time. We wanted to leave a few minutes at the end for our friends at Sky to kind of talk about what they're doing. So I believe these slides will be made available to you, but it just very quickly shows from a developer perspective how they would insert LoadRunner APIs into their unit tests, how they would execute that from within their development framework, verify the output, and then create a LoadRunner scenario directly from within the IDE. And then it gives you some screenshots from the Jenkins plugin as well. From a Performance Center perspective, here's just a quick summary of some of the APIs that are available for integration with your proprietary or in-house continuous delivery process. And you can leverage some of those to create tests in a very dynamic way using Performance Center. Another set of capabilities that are part of this release kind of revolve around the changing needs of modern applications, and those are HTML5 support through WebSockets and Google Speedy, which is fast becoming the template for the HTTP2 standard. Both of these are supported within the web HTTP protocol in LoadRunner and Performance Center, and there's full videos and tutorials on how to leverage these new capabilities available on the LoadRunner website. Lastly, I wanted to talk a bit about performance application lifecycle. So that last step in continuous testing is where we understand what is actually happening in production, and then we leverage that data to enhance and improve our performance testing so that it's more production-like, more realistic from an end-user perspective. So in Performance Center, I think at 11.5, we introduced the Performance Application Lifecycle, which allows us to connect with Web Trends or HP Real User Monitor to collect data from production and compare it with our test data, and that way we can further tune and tweak our performance tests to be more production-like. And in version 12, we're now supporting Google Analytics and IIS as well. So you can connect directly to Google Analytics, which is the most popular tool for understanding production usage for internet-facing applications. So again, coming back to the cloud testing capability, if you have applications that are internet-facing, this is a great way to understand what your users are actually doing on your applications and websites, so that you can inject or tweak our performance test scenarios to be more like actual production usage. And here's just some screenshots from the performance application lifecycle in Google Analytics. Okay, second last topic before we move over to our friends at Sky. I want to make sure that we leave enough time there. The user experience is another key area that we're focusing on in this release. Number one, in Performance Center, we've added some new capabilities there, which I'll show in a second, around running ad hoc tests much easier than you could in previous releases. But first, just a couple of highlights from this release. So the virtual table server, which was introduced in version 11.5.2, actually reintroduced after many years of being an unsupported platform. It has been updated and enhanced to allow multiple instances of the virtual table server to run on a single machine. And the virtual table server, for those of you who are not aware, and it's included in our Community Edition download, which I'll talk about in a moment, provides you with the ability to share and reuse test parameter data between tests and centrally manage that data so that you don't need to validate and manage individual parameter data files between scripts and scenarios. It also provides the ability to create very complex scenarios where maybe one user creates a record and another virtual user consumes it, which is only possible through centralization. We've also included a true client to web HTTP converter utility, and this goes back to the continuous testing topic as well, where true client is great for developing scripts and getting that very early feedback to developers. The downside of true client being that it runs a full browser for each of the virtual users, so it can have a very heavy footprint depending on the application that you're testing. And in order to run very high-scale tests, we need to be able to convert those true client scripts into HTTP scripts for later cycles where we run at very high loads. So in version 12, we provided a utility which will take your completed true client script with parameters and run logic built into it and create a like-for-like HTTP script, which gives you then two scripts, but saves a lot of time in terms of making sure that you have everything captured in your transport level scripts as well. We're also supporting additional languages in Performance Center in this release. I believe it's Russian and German with Lika. Is that correct?
Sorry? Oh.
Is it Russian and German for Performance Center that are also supported in this release?
Yes.
Okay. And in Performance Center, we are now supporting the analysis templates that were introduced in LoadRunner 11 so that you can create templates for your test analysis and reuse those templates in Performance Center for the automated creation of your test results. All right. And the last thing I wanted to mention for Performance Center is the Test Express UI. So the ability to create an ad hoc test using the single screen in very simple steps. So a lot of feedback that we got from And I see, sorry, there's a placeholder in this slide for whether or not we need it. I apologize for that. But the idea here is that we can schedule our tests using lab automation. We can run our tests using continuous delivery through Jenkins or through the REST APIs. But sometimes we need to run ad hoc tests. We have a need to run a specific scenario, maybe for production troubleshooting, or maybe for a specific scenario that wasn't included in our baseline testing or in our regularly scheduled tests. So then we can create this test using this Test Express, which is a very simple UI for selecting the test set, the scripts, the design, the scenario, and then what we do with the results. And of course, in every release, we want to keep on top of the latest technologies. And I won't go through this individually, but you'll have this available to you in the handout side. Just skipping ahead very quickly, I mentioned the HP Live Network already, but I wanted to leave a few moments for flexible delivery before we shift over to our Sky portion of the presentation. And this is maybe the biggest change of the release, and something that clearly deserves more than a single slide, but I think the few bullets just speak volumes. So in LoadRunner 12, we're introducing what's called the Community Edition. And if you go to LoadRunner.com, or sorry, hp.com/go/LoadRunner, you'll be able to download this Community Edition, which is 50 free virtual users perpetually, and these are absolutely free for your use. You can give this to your developers to do that early unit testing that we talked about for continuous delivery without consuming the licenses that you purchase. This is free. It's perpetual. It comes without support from HP, but we have a very strong user community. So if you have any problems or questions there, you can always go to our user forums, and we have support and R&D staff there, or through many of our non-HP forums as well, Google groups, LinkedIn, Facebook. There's a number of very active communities that support and R&D are also very active on in case you have any questions. In Performance Center, we also provide 50 free virtual users, and again, for both of these, it's across all protocols except for COM-DCOM, GUI, and templates. So even your true client, your SAP, you get 50 free virtual users in LoadRunner and Performance Center. And in Performance Center, this allows you to perform some smoke testing without consuming your regular license pool, or maybe run some tests against protocols that you hadn't previously purchased. We've also reduced or simplified our pricing model significantly, and we no longer charge customers for the controller license. So if you previously purchased LoadRunner Performance Center and you want to take advantage of this new structure, simply contact your HP sales or HP renewals rep. In LoadRunner, what this means is you only need to buy virtual users. And it can be virtual user days, the 24-hour consumable license. It can be term licenses, or the perpetual virtual users. And that's it. That's all you need. This is on top of the community 50 free virtual users, so there's a lot of flexibility there. In Performance Center, this means that you're no longer restricted by the number of controllers that you own. And that means if you have 1,000 virtual users, you can run one test of 1,000 or 10 tests of 100 or 2 tests of 500. It's up to you. We're no longer restricting users by the number of controller licenses that are on. And the last point here is that you can get your hands on LoadRunner directly using the link that I mentioned, or you can go to HP SaaS, which provides Performance Center services. You can get LoadRunner in the cloud from many of our partners, our professional services providers, or our managed service providers. There's an endless number of ways to get your hands on these tools. Okay, with that, I think, Mukalika, I'd appreciate if you could do the introduction, and then we'll give the last few minutes to Sky.
Sure. So today we have Colin from British Sky Broadcasting. They were involved as our design partner for version 12, as well as they took part in the beta program and has given us a lot of feedback around especially continuous testing. They are very advanced in performance testing, and because of the shortage of time, I will let Colin talk about how they use Performance Center in Agile testing today and what they used in version 12. Colin? Jane, can you move to the next?
So hello everyone, my name's Colin Griffiths and I'm a performance test team leader at BSkyB, and I also look after our HP tools suite. And as Mukalika introduced there, we recently had the exciting opportunity to participate in the PC12 beta program and get early access to it. So I'm here today just to tell you a bit about what we do and our experience with Performance Center 12. So, who are Sky? Sky is the largest digital satellite broadcaster in the UK. We do a lot of our own original programming content with our Sky One entertainment channel and our Sky News news channel programming. We're the leading original sports content provider in the UK, and we also have a big movie presence with Sky Movies. We also deliver, we are also a telecommunications provider in terms of broadband and telephony, and we also offer our customers Wi-Fi hotspots and video streaming content on your mobile devices using our Sky Go offering. So, I work for the customer business systems area of Sky, and we deal with the internal applications used by our agents to manage our customers' accounts. We have a large CRM platform. It's a Cordant application delivered over IBM WebSphere. There's lots of back-end systems for us to deal with. We're in the fortunate position we have 2 full volume production replica environments for our performance testing effort, and we are testing every day, almost 24/7. We qualify hundreds of projects a year that require performance testing and non-functional testing, and being a media company, we are frequently working to very tight deadlines that would be unrealistic in other industries. These deadlines are driven by marketing or campaigns or sporting events, which obviously we have no control of, and it can be very visible and public if we get things wrong. Okay, so what tools do we have? The HP tool suite forms a large part of the tool set that we use here. We're obviously large HP software customers. We depend on the HP tool set to deliver our software releases. Tools-wise, we have Quality Center, UFT, Performance Center, which we've been using since Performance Center 8. We've got a very large PC estate. We have an enterprise ELA with all protocols. We're currently running a license for 30 controllers. We have 10 analysis hosts. We're licensed up to 40,000 concurrent users. We have 200 plus load generators, so that gives you some kind of idea of the scale of our performance center estate. We're also big users of HP diagnostics, and we have some 280 probes deployed across our test environments. And finally, of course, we're big users of HP SiteScope as well. So, delivery at Sky, as I'm sure is the same throughout everyone's organisation, can be a challenge. The old world for us, essentially we delivered a platform release every 6 weeks to our production platform, and that consisted of number of applications. It was the main CRM system, but also testing the back-end parts of that, the billing system, the debt system, our broadband and telephony provisioning and assurance, our supply chain systems, etc. And traditionally this has been a waterfall delivery, with up to 20 projects delivering in a release, all or some of them requiring non-functional testing. So our approach to that has in the past been large platform simulations in the last couple of weeks of that 6-week release cycle, where we're simulating up to 6,500 agents interacting with a number of applications. So the test for that could be anywhere up to 10 controllers running concurrently to simulate one platform test, and on top of that we would have the batch schedule running using Control M. So in the new world, if you could move the slide on please, Shane. As with a lot of organisations, the business is demanding faster and more frequent deliveries, so we are moving from waterfall to agile and an SOA model internally for our application stack. We now have some 15 agile teams delivering change weekly to production, so obviously the requirement is there to test more frequently and test smarter, and with HP's help and Performance Center 12, that helps us do that. So agile testing has been on our radar for some time. Up until recently we've had a nightly continuous integration run of SOA service tests, and we've orchestrated that using Jenkins, and we've been running the tests using JMeter. The test itself, we compare component versions with our cutting-edge functional test environment. We deploy the latest code versions to our NFT environments and cut over to it. We run smoke tests. Based on the outcome of the smoke test, we would change the configuration of the load test. We would run the load test based on the smoke test results, and at the end of that we would get automated results out by email, and finally we could optionally revert back to the previous version that was deployed to our environment. So with Performance Center 12, the REST API now provides us the ability to do that with Performance Center, so we can remove JMeter from our CI solution and switch over to Performance Center. We started doing this. We can execute tests, we can pull down the results, and we're looking forward to all the capabilities that we can get from a managed test solution like Performance Center, and finally switch out JMeter for good. Okay, so our experience of the beta, we really enjoyed the time that we spent with Performance Center 12. It was very positive for us. We liked the new look and feel. We particularly liked the improvements to My Performance Center. Our test team thought it was a big improvement for performance testers. Shane's obviously covered a bunch of the features that are there, but we particularly liked the analysis templates. Very useful feature that will add a lot of power to our testing, and of course the REST API that enables our agile continuous integration efforts. Shane also touched on the true client improvements that are there, and the ability to convert a true client script to web. That's again something that we've used and something that we've found already very useful. Internally we deployed Performance Center using our own internal cloud, our infrastructure on demand, so that was good, a good opportunity to stretch that internally. We migrated 3 projects very quickly as part of the Performance Center 12 installation, and in fact we were up and running in a morning, and in our experience the installation was a lot smoother and a lot easier than previous versions of Performance Center. So anyone who's been through the Performance Center installation process before will appreciate that the improvements there are a good thing. We got the opportunity to raise some defects, some enhancement requests, and some new feature requests during the beta testing period, and we also got a good opportunity at the end of that beta to have a conference call with the HP R&D team in Israel, and they talked to us about some of our Performance Center usage scenarios, and we got some good conversation going around that. So thank you. I'll hand back over to Shane and Mukalika.
Thanks, Colin, for that overview. It's very helpful to hear how other customers are using the software, and you were a representative for Sky at our customer advisory board in EMEA. Hopefully we can see you again there this year, and we look forward to continue working with you.
Thank you, Shane. Look forward to it.
Some additional resources before we wrap it up. A few minutes late here. As I mentioned, you can go to the hp.com/go/LoadRunner at the bottom and download the latest with 50 free virtual users. There's some other links there for our blog, links to webinars, as well as the system requirements for those of you who are interested in how we get or what's required for the latest versions. So I don't think we have any time for questions online. Perhaps organizers could help us out there and understand what's remaining and how we want to proceed.
Stephanie, do we go through the questions? I have answered most of them in the question panel, or should we read out?
Sure, definitely. I think we should probably end the webinar soon and answer the questions offline. Does that sound good? There are so many.
Yeah, of course. Happy to help
Okay.
Answer those questions offline, and we'll. I guess it'll be posted somewhere for our viewers to see the answers to those questions.
Absolutely. In the next few days, everyone will receive an email with a link to where the webinar recording and the slide deck will be posted on the website. So look for that to come soon.
Great. Just a last plug for HP Discover. For those of you interested, we're again joining tens of thousands of users and practitioners worldwide in Las Vegas from June 10th to 12th. And you can find the registration link at hp.com/go/discover. Some additional resources available for you here, which will be provided in the call, in the notes. And I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us today, and thank you for choosing HP, and have a pleasant day.